Welcome, dear friends, to the Spirit Society of Virginia with Cardiac Radio. We are here in one more Spiritist talk, followed by passes, prayers. It's our public meeting, now online because of these different times that we're living. And of course, if you have children, in our Facebook page, the Spiritist Society of Virginia's Facebook page, you're going to be able to follow the lesson online for children. Daisy Gallen and Carol Correa are there at the Spiritist Society of Virginia waiting for your children to enjoy 15 to 20 minutes of lessons on Spiritism. Today they're going to study friendship. Today here we have a special guest, our friend Leo Vieira. He's going to be here with us soon. And for now, we want to begin with our initial message. So welcome, dear friends. I'm going to call our dear friend Paloma to kindly.
Hello, everyone. We're going to start by reading a message from the book, Our Daily Bread. It was psychographed by Chico Xavier by the Spirit Emmanuel. And if you have the book, you can follow along. It's chapter 132, titled In All Things. We commend ourselves in all things, in much patience, in afflictions, in hardships, in distresses. Paul. Most adherents of the gospel do not seriously consider the religious aspect of life except in outward worship activities. Many believe that it is enough for them to assiduously attend gatherings of the faithful and all the enigmas of the soul, as far as our relationship with God is concerned, will be deciphered. However, the teachings of Christ call for individual renewal and growth in all circumstances. What can be said of people who are apparently contrite during public acts of their religious creed, but who use profanity in the sanctuary of their home? There are many who say they are believers while amongst the crowd, but who show themselves to be lazy at work, fraught in their suffering, unrestrained in happiness, unfaithful in their doings, and blasphemous in the troubles of the heart. Would Jesus strive for the development of his followers only to be praised by them while they kneel a few hours per week? To attribute such a purpose to the Master would be to demean his sublime principles. It is crucial that disciples make themselves commendable in all things, demonstrating the excellence of the ideas that nourish them both at home and at church, in their daily activities and in the public streets. Of course, no one has to live solely with their hands folded or gazing into the heavens. However, let us not forget that gentleness, goodwill, cooperation, and politeness are divine aspects of the living prayer of a disciple of Christ. So beautiful what Emmanuel wrote, making sure that we are reminded that our connection with God and with Jesus goes beyond our public meetings. It actually goes very much into our houses, as it should be treated as a temple. And he reminds us to use gentleness, goodwill, cooperation, and politeness. And we are at a great time to practice this as we're all at home with our families, and they are reminding us that we should definitely exercise these skills. Thank you.
Thank you, Paloma. It's good to be reminded of Christ conscious tips so we can live better today. Many people ask whether or not we spiritists are always thinking about the afterlife and the future. No. We are pondering everything that is happening so we can live a better life today, sowing the good so we can reap the good tomorrow. So let us sow the good together by now praying together. Shall we, friends? Let us pray. Dear Mother, Father God, in this special day, when we recall the passage of our Master Jesus and his passion, it's hard not to think of his suffering, but mostly his suffering for us. Today, dear Master, we praise you and greet you in deep gratitude. We don't want to be childish anymore when we take for granted the immense works and efforts of yours. We finally want to grow up beyond our wants and maturely fulfill God's will on earth as it is in heaven. May this session today nourish our souls deeply and make us feel ever more connected to your loving plan. Asking for your guidance, protection, and permission, we begin our session, our service tonight, and so be it. So here we are. We're going to welcome our dear friend Leo Vieira. Hello, Leo. How are you?
Hello, Vanessa. Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be here with everyone sharing this topic that we're going to be talking about tonight and having a discussion, right?
Yes.
And mainly some reminders so we can make our lives a little bit easier in the now and in the future as well.
Yes. So it's springing to the future, right, Leo?
That is correct.
Yes.
Spring into the future.
All right. So, Leo, for those who are not acquainted, Leo is talking directly from Baltimore. He's one of the directors of the Spiritist Society of Baltimore, and we've had this friendship for many lives, reconnected in this life, right? And now to do the good and only the good, right, Leo?
Yes, it is, Vanessa. We cannot deny the past connections.
Yes, Leo. So welcome. Thank you so much for making the time with yourself and the family to be here with us today in this online public session here at the Spirit Side of Virginia Cardiac Radio, so we can embrace everybody who is joining us. I see wonderful friends who have been joining us here, and we hope that everybody who is at home, I know it's very tempting, friends, to be distracted, cooking dinner, eating, and watching. But if we don't make this a time that is exclusively for this spiritual nourishment, the good spirits will have a hard time to help us completely. So let us feel like we are in the Spiritist Center. Bring the Spiritist Center to our house. Stop everything and just do this and only this, nothing else, as if you were there. Because during this time, when Leo is going to lead us into a special study, the good spirits will be able, with your guardian angels, to go to your house, help you and loved ones, as long as we do our share. Let's make this as therapeutic as can be. Okay, so I'll pass the word to Leo. He's going to lead us into a special study. And if you have questions, feel free to write them down at the end of the session. We may be able to address them. Leo, I'm going to turn it all to you.
Thank you. So hello again, everyone, and I'm really happy to be here to share this topic with you in Spring into the Future. The idea, obviously, it's not something new. When we were invited to speak and to kind of have this discussion, we always want to bring something that is going to enlighten our lives and to bring us some happiness, some comfort, right? Mainly, it was generated from two things that has been several things, though, not the only two things, but I'll share a couple with you that will allow us to understand the reasons why, and then really help us connect with the topic. Number one, it's the idea of springing to the future, right? That we're going through this transition right now. For some of us, a crisis. For some of us, a tough time, staying home. For some of us, it's something okay. People like to stay home. People like to, stay in the comfort of their home. So that's not so bad, to a certain degree. But for others, obviously, everyone are going through some moment of difficulties now. The idea is not only for us to spring into the future, that now we're in spring, it's, flowers are blooming, it's the season now, but really beyond the spring, right? Beyond, what's coming next. So our summer, hopefully we'll be out of this soon, as well in the other seasons. This whole 2020 that sometimes we see that, oh my God, it's, what's going on with, the year 2000 and, 2020. What have we got ourselves into? This madness, this or that, but also to spring into the near future. I'm talking about now, a year from now, 2 years from now. How are we going to be in terms of looking back and say, we made it, here we are, we learned from this, and also ultimately having long-term goals in terms of a decade from now, 100 years from now. It's very interesting because as we were preparing for this, we also dived into several epidemics or other things that kind of came to mind that we would be speaking. And we have been through so many issues, right? 100 years ago, H1N1 killing many people. And we came out of it. We had other crises, wars, and many things. We're not here to propagate any of the dark things that we have been seeing on Earth, but just a reminder that we will come out of it. And today we look back and say, look, we can make something better out of this. Even though it was a dark moment in our lives, we can make something better out of this. But the moment that I would like to share with you is that we were having a discussion amongst a group of spiritists, and one of the young gentlemen in the discussion turned back to us and asked, where's God in all this? Very genuine. I mean, it was a very genuine question. Where's God in all this when we see what we're going through right now? All the dark things are happening in us. Where are we going? How can we, where's the presence of God? And that really made me wonder and think about this whole thing, as well as, what we have been seeing in terms of behaviors, at first, with this whole change in how we deal with one another, with the public, the closures of things that is going on, first idea, thank God, was the positive, right? The positive that we were going to see with all these changes, once we come out of it. But then I start thinking, wait a minute, this is human behavior. It doesn't change overnight, right? All the different things the dark things, the negative things that we see, it doesn't change overnight. It takes a while. So then I came back to my reality and said, okay, is this really going to change a lot of people, or will a lot of people go back to the same old things that they were doing in the past? So again, I bring these ideas for us to number one, to alert us, and also to really ask ourselves to ponder about ourselves. What is my take on this whole thing, and what can I do to live a better life along with what's happening? Because we cannot deny it, and we cannot shut ourselves in our rooms or in our homes, even though now we're secluded a little bit in our homes. But guess what? We have to face it. We have to learn from it, right? So one thing that I also would like to share is a little passage of what we from this man, Louis Pasteur, a French scientist, developer of the pasteurization process for milk and the vaccines for anthrax, chicken, cholera, and rabies. I wanted to bring this man to light. It was because of this man that we now have a great process of, if we can say this way, cleanliness. The preparation, for example, before an operation, right? Hospital, sterilization, everything that we can put in the umbrella of cleanliness is really through the hard research of this man and many others also that came before him and after him as well, that continue his work. And I want to share something with you, that one of his quotes: "The more I study nature, the more I stand amazed at the work of the Creator. Into his tiniest creatures, God has placed extraordinary properties that turn them into agents of destruction or death, or dead matter. A bit of science distances one from God, but much science nears one to him." And why not dive into this idea that we're going through right now in terms of this little tiny creature, right, that can cause a lot of damage, that is causing a lot of damage in terms of how, and I wouldn't say behavior or change of behaviors right now for us, but also take the second part of it and talking about science and bringing spiritism and some of the enlightenments that spiritism brings to us, since it's a science, so we can get a little bit closer to God. Well, I'll take a step back, closer to ourselves, and then closer to God, and see where we within the universe, and allow us to step back and say, okay, I have a take on this whole thing. I can also make a difference, right? In not only for myself, but for others around me, the loved ones, our family circle, but also others, again, not only on the planet Earth, but also in the universe. So a little bit different from the Spirit's book, where Kardec starts with God. I would like to reverse this a little bit. Let's go back to ourselves. If I were to ask now anybody, or and you can ask yourself directly, who are we, or who am I? I have a very finite way to answer it. It's very, let's say, it's not broad. I mean, with my materialistic mind, I can only answer to what I see. I am Leonardo Vieira. I'm in Maryland. I have, so many members in my family. I have this. I am a father. I am a husband, wife. I have this type of job. I have this title, and all these things that we can see it now, right? But we are much more than this. We are the intelligent principle of the universe. We are spirits. And Kardec asked this question in terms of the idea of spirit in different ways, as you can see now in our screen. The the question 23 of the Spirit's book, Kardec asked, what is the spirit? And the enlightened spirit said, the intelligent principle of the universe. So it's not just that we are this individual. We have been created by God. We had a beginning, right? But not only we are the intelligent principle, but we are also infinite. We don't die. We will continue. And this is in a very important point for us to make when we are trying to understand who we are and our position in the universe. The second way that is asked is, how may we define spirits? It has a difference here. And then the Spirit says, we can say that the spirits are the intelligent beings of creation. They populate the universe, not just Maryland, Virginia, United States, or the earth, but the universe beyond the material world. So it takes our perception of who we are and brought us in such a way that it's even hard to understand. Again, we are uncertain in matter, and it's hard for us to understand this idea beyond planet Earth, beyond the universe, right? Because now we're talking about the material world, what we consider material as well. So it's pretty broad, and it makes us wonder, why we get so caught up with the small things of life. Why do we get caught up with the fear of death? Obviously, this is a topic for us to dive into, maybe into another session, maybe into another study. And we can refer you to the 5 main books of the Spiritist literature. But mainly, right here is just to illustrate that we are beyond what we imagine to be in this physical body. It gives us a sense of who we were before this lifetime in this physical body, as well as the ground that we're preparing ourselves, what's to come after this spring, right? To spring into the future, right? Now, we are the beings, the intelligent beings of creation. So what is creation? That takes us to the first question of the Spirit's book. What is God? God is the supreme intelligence, the first cause of all things, in which, in order for us to understand, Kardec also dives into the how we can understand God, how we can get closer to God to understand. And he gives us the idea that God is eternal, immutable, immaterial. God is one. There are no other gods. God is all powerful because God is one. And God is supreme, supremely just and good. The attributes of God, so we understand. If we take this simple but yet very effective answer by the spirits and analyze it in conjunction to now how we understand who we are, we can see that we were created by a supreme intelligence. Analyzing that, we will see that this intelligence does not want us to suffer, does not want us to adore him or her, whichever way you want to put it, in terms of favors. God does not worry that we are, in debt with this, in debt with that. God wants us to be happy, which is what we are striving for, right? To every day of our lives, in our small interactions, in our bigger interaction with the universe, little by little, because we don't do jumps. We don't spring from the winter into summer. We have to go through spring. Again, I'm using the analogy right here of the seasons, so we understand how small these strides are to get to perfection. And we're going to talk about more perfection in the future, in the near future here. So it's important for us to bring these points so we understand who we are in this whole scheme of things, right? So God is not that God is upset if I make a mistake, that he wants us to do well. But in order for us to do well, we have to obey laws, natural laws. In other words, we have the capabilities, we have the choices that we can make when we also learn with Spiritism that we have free will, right? And then question 843, we see that the question, do human act with free will? And the answer is, since they have freedom of thought, they have freedom of action. Without free will, human beings would be machines. God didn't create us to do A, B, or C. God gives us offers us the capability to make choices. This is also, again, very difficult to understand in a couple minutes, but this free will, obviously, it's very circumscribed, or there's a limit depending on our intelligence, depending on what we can do on our capabilities. For example, a child have a limit free will based on his or her capabilities, as well as the way the surroundings that is imposed or offered to that little individual. Parents, for example, who are very protective, guess what? Kids will not be able to do many things. Or on the other side, parents that are very open-minded, or they lack some kind of restriction, kids may do things that is going to hurt themselves, right? And they probably will create other issues in their lives and the lives of their parents as well. So this analogy is good for us to understand that if there weren't the moral laws that we're presenting here, that is actually also presented in the third part of the Spirit's book, that Kardec brings the teachings of the moral laws, or the divine laws, if you want to call it that way, we would be in trouble. So we have free will, we have the capabilities to act accordingly or not, and then there will be consequences that will have to be in certain ways repaired, in certain ways. If we do work accordingly to these laws, we will have a greater sense of free will, if you will, or live happier, right? And the laws are the laws of worship, the law of labor, reproduction, preservation, law of destruction, the law of society, that should have been on the bottom there, underneath, and then law of progress, the law of equality, the law of freedom, law of justice, love, and charity. The last one is all together. It's also an amazing, please, we invite everyone, since you have this free time at home, read this third part read the whole book, but this third part of the Spirit's book, it's very interesting because it allows us to understand how we can manage our lives better by acting accordingly to these laws. And the reason I highlighted the law of progress, because not only it's a law, we have to follow this law. We gradually progress. We never regress in our reincarnations, in our life. Perhaps in certain situations we may be stuck in certain situations, certain moments, certain things, but we're always going to be pushed to progress. And it is about this progress that I want to give continuation in this greater scheme of things that we're talking about here tonight. It's the how we perfect ourselves. In the Spirit's book also, Kardec explains to us the order of spirits, right? The hierarchy of spirits. This hierarchy is not based on titles in terms of, I go to school, I have this title, or I have done this, I get this or get that. It's mainly on service. If we can, I like to call it service, and this is a personal take on it, on serving the universe, on how we are, able to make my life better and the lives of others better. Remember, Jesus always reminded us that the greater one will be the ones that serves the most. So that's why I like to bring this to this idea of service. And we have these three orders: the third order, the imperfect spirits; the second order, the good spirits; the first order, the pure spirits, right? So it go into classes. It is broken down into classes: 10th, 9th, 8th, 7th, and the 6th class under the third order of spirits, that we can say, we may be in that position right now, in one of those positions there, Or we can also say that we are vibrating in between, right? We have glimpses of these classes, the way they act and the way they behave. Their predominance influence, of matter of spirit, propension to evil, ignorance, pride, selfishness, and all the evil passions which results from these. And then the second order spirits, I'll jump into the characteristic, predominance of spirit over matter. Now we're more spiritualized over matter, desire of excellence. And we also vibrate in this position, the fifth, the fourth, and the third, the second class. Not so much into the third in the second, but we still now in a position of predominance. Interesting enough, just a parenthesis that I would like to make here, that in the Genesis, according to Spiritism, we see that one of the highlights of the transition on the earth that we're going to talk about soon here is that we are more spiritualized. It's not that we have a great sense of religiosity or being religious, but really is spirituality over matter. Meaning we're getting to be less materialistic and more spiritual. That's one of the signs that we can see in this great transition of things. And we're going to jump into it. I know the parentheses, maybe it was a little bit too early, but I get excited because, we see a lot of negative things, but we forget, well, maybe people are spiritualized. Maybe people are questioning things more, especially now in this time of the crisis that we're going through right now. So the last one here, which would say the first one, what we were striving for, is the first order, the pure spirit. General characteristics: the influence of matter, it's none. A superiority, both intellectual and moral, so absolute as to constitute what, in comparison with the spirit of all the other orders, may be termed perfection. So first class and only class. That is the adjustments that we get to go through, or the classes that we get to this first and only class. Being very materialistic to more spiritualized, benevolent, learned, wise, and high, become a high spirit. And then the first class is the pure spirit. Now, this is us, right? This is the spirit. Not just one life, in trillions of life, many lives, we'll get to this position. As we evolve, guess what? The planet that we live, that we reincarnate in many times, or perhaps we come back to, also get to evolve. Sometimes, depending on the situation, we may be called, hopefully one day, to do some internship into a new planet, right? And then this is more for us to study as well in other sessions, but I'm just giving glimpses that life is not just this. So we may be called to do an internship in another planet that is a little bit more evolved than planet Earth, so we can bring ideas and help us, right? In that case, in the Gospel according to Spiritism, we see that there are several transitions that planets go through, and we see that the planet Earth has been going through this transition. That from a primitive planet, we can see the primordial times of planet Earth being a primitive planet. Now we have come from a primitive planet many years ago into a planet of trials and expiation, and we are now into this transition into a regenerative planet, right? That's why we also see, as I just mentioned, a lot of the help that we are getting, not help, all the highlights of spirituality, all the different things that is helping to shake us and say, okay, now it's time for us to choose what is truly important in our lives, right? So we are in this transitioning to become a regenerative planet. That doesn't mean that we're going to be a happy planet, right? Because happy planets come after. And then after that, a celestial planet where, as we can see here, pure spirits will be inhabiting those planets, right? So we evolve as spirits. I'm not going to be Leo in the next reincarnation. I'm going to be something else, plus Leo, plus Jonathan, plus whatever other spirit or whatever personality I was, whatever gains I had, as well as whatever difficulties I created. I will have to deal with it as much as I am dealing with my difficulties right now that I created on the past. In other words, everything that we have done have brought us thus far to this session. I like to play with my family about this, and they look at me like, what are you talking about? Everything that we have done in previous life has accounted or has helped tremendously to what we are right now, to where we are right now. Literally sitting down, watching a talk and having a discussion about our future lives, of who we are. Because if the great events of our lives did not happen, perhaps we wouldn't be here. We would be worried about certain things. It's not that we were led directly, because remember, we have choice. We could be watching TV right now. We could be doing something else. We could be disrespecting the orders of the government and still drive around and do things. But we now have a common sense that we stop and say, you know what? Let's go ahead and listen to this guy. Let's, do something better to our lives. So everything have helped for us to be here tonight. And whatever we do in this life or tomorrow and the days to come, the years to come, will also prepare us to the next springs, the future that we're talking about. That is the main highlight that I would like to bring, and let's stay with that idea with us. So going back to what we're saying, so planets also evolve, right? And it is in the amazing book, Planetary Transition by, on the Genesis again, that Kardec brings to us, the time has arrived, signs of time and the new generation. And these are excerpts that I brought from the book, that it says, in order for people to be happy on the earth, it must be populated only by good incarnate and discarnate spirits who desire nothing but good. So the majority, in order for us to be a happy planet, the majority of spirits, or all of the spirits, if not, have to be happy. They have to do good. They have to vibrate in a positive manner. And this is the transition that we're going through right now. We're being asked to make choices, to change our ideas or ideals. So the psychosphere of the planet is also changed in such a way that all of us will vibrate the same way, on the good. Once such a time has come, there will be a great immigration from among those who inhabit the earth. Those who practice evil for evil's sake and are untouched by the sentiment of the good will no longer be worthy of the transformed planet. It's like this. If we were to right now ask you to come and drive with me to another state, let's say you take a 5-hour drive, right? Chances are I'm going to be listening to the songs that I like to play, or the genre that I like to play, whatever. The person who's going to be, if you don't like the genre that I like to play, guess what? You're not going to be pleased with that that type of music, right? Or if you try to play something else, I'm not going to be pleased with what you play. It's what I'm talking about here is a symphony, right? We will not connect in terms of music. We're here talking about goodness or evil. So if I have a propensity for evil, I'm not going to be in connection with this planet anymore. I'll be asked to continue my evolutionary path someplace else. Continue with the text. They will be banished from it because their stay would once more cause trouble and confusion and would be an obstacle to progress. Remember, progress is a law, a divine law. It must happen. We can't stop it. It's like stop the wheel. It's not happening. We will have to continue, right? So we will be given the ability, because of our free will, to continue again, but not here on earth. They will be replaced by more advanced spirits who will see to it that justice, peace, and fraternity reign. The present age is one of transition. The members of both generations are mixed together. Standing at the midpoint, we are watching the departure of one and the arrival of the other. And each is already distinguishable by the characteristics that are proper to it. We have mentioned earlier that is the ideals that we are providing one another, or sparking now in our minds and our hearts of spirituality, right? Our laws are become more refined. We are questioning things that in the past we may have closed our lips. We'll give an example. Recently, I came in contact with some discussions about women's right, about child labor, and it's horrifying to see what we have done in the past in terms of how we treated women, and how we still treat it. We still have to take that into account, as well as children, as well as how we connect with one another in terms of labor laws and many other things. But I like to bring these two aspects because we have seen some improvement, and I think that with this change that right now that we're seeing people working from home, we're going to see even more, because it's not all about the money, but it's also about the quality of life. And I think this is going to be a major shift for us in terms of laws and labor laws and the number of hours that we're working and the type of working that we're doing. Not like what I do, but how I do it. So hang in there, be positive. We'll probably see some positive things coming from there. But one of the other highlights that I would like to bring into this planetary transition that we're going through right now, as we have seen with the Gospel according to Spiritism, is that we go through these planetary transitions, is that not only the spirits who are reincarnated here on Earth now will discarnate eventually, because we'll lose the physical body. We'll reincarnate again on Earth to give continuation of the good work that we're doing. But we're also receiving an influx of high order spirits from other planets, more advanced spirits, that they will bring to us new ideas, new conditions. And they have something really interesting with them that I would like to highlight with you and share with you. Please read it. Please read it. It's from the book Planetary Transition, finally. The author, Manuel Filomeno de Miranda, the spirit, and this book is actually brought by the medium Divaldo Franco, an amazing book. It's in Portuguese, it's in English. It's just, again, an amazing reading for us that are going through this moment of transition right now. The book actually bring highlights about the tsunami that happened in 2004. Many of you remember what happened at the end of the year. It's a highlight on the physical plane before, the during, and the after the tsunami in 2004. The preparations that happened, because the Manuel Filomeno de Miranda mentions, gives us the hint that the high order spirits knew that planet Earth geologically was going to go through that change, that physical change, the tectonic plates that kind of moved and created the whole thing. It needed to go through that geologically. Materialistic had to happen, and obviously affected and took the life of many in many countries. But there was a spiritual preparation, not only to help those who were distraught with the event, during the event, as well in the future, and it's still happening. And one of the highlights, obviously, was that at the beginning of the book, a high order spirit came from a constellation far away to give an announcement of the work that was going to be laid out. And he explains that it was, beautiful work was going to happen. New high order spirit were going to be reincarnating on Earth. And he himself, the spirit highlighted, why should spirit come from another orb, another planet, to help moralize your planet? And the answers were really interesting. He answered his own question. He says, having no previous ties arising from perturbing existence, they would not have to confront inner impediments to the benevolent giving processes or the painful re-encounters with those who remain committed to evil, who have an interest in maintaining the moral backwardness of the communities in order to exploit them physically in perverse phenomena of imperialization of individuals and collective obsessions. Strangers in lands ready for progress, they do it out of love, called to offer their values obtained in other realms, facilitating access to the development of those who are natives longing for happiness. In other words, they have no connection whatsoever. There are no ties whatsoever with those here on planet Earth. It's easier for them to do the work that many of us are already trying to do. But if I were to ask you, for you to go back right now and help someone who is in need, but who have hurt you in the past, I guarantee you, or I shouldn't say guarantee you, I could say that it will be a little bit harder. Hopefully not. Hopefully you already have this sense of forgiveness inside of you, that you forgive, and okay, now life goes on, right? That is what the ultimate idea, where we disconnect from that moment and we see that individual in a different way as a brother and sister, right? And we're going to talk more about that. Second, and here's a picture of Manuel Filomena de Miranda. Second, because the ones that are more advanced morally can contribute edifying examples capable of silencing the forces of evil and obstructing them with unsurpassed resources of personal sacrifice, since their aspirations are not immediate and self-serving in the world of forms. While other will be experiencing a form of temporary exile in that they are developed intellectually, but still inexperienced in the realm of love, in the direct contact with the less evolved, they will feel the need for affection and caring, learning in turn the miraculous phenomena of solidarity. Everything, therefore, is summarized in giving, which it means receiving, and in receiving, which it invites giving. The first part of the second reason here is very important, because their ideals is not of what's going to happen after spring 2020. Their ideals, their sacrifices is a long-term sacrifice. And this is one of the things that I would like to bring, the two things that I would like to bring with this highlight of planetary transition, is for us to change our perception here. Number one, our connection with our brothers and sisters, right? Anything that is done towards us, remember, we have said earlier, everything that we have done in the past brought us here. So if we find roadblocks, if we find difficulties with one another, guess what? It's not that God, that intelligent, principle, right? The way we were created, it's not that God is punishing us. I like to say the supreme intelligence has not created us to be punished or being punished, but to readjust under the moral law, also constructed by God, created by God, to adjust, not only adjust ourselves, but help adjust others as well. And in order for us to do that and to connect with these higher minds, we have to do what? We have to disconnect from these lesser happy moments of our lives, as well as think of the future. Now I'm thinking spring of 3020. Can we do that? Can we think of what we're going to do or where we're going to be 10 years from now? Let's not go so far. 10 years from now, 2030. Many times when we come in contact with, when we go to apply for a job or something, one of the questions that we get to see a lot is, where you see yourself in 5 years? And then maybe the follow-up question may be, what about 10 years? Where do you see yourself? We don't do that in our personal lives. We don't, in our year resolution, we don't do that. Okay, 2021, what do I want to do? But okay, 2030, 2040, 2050, where do I want to be? Not only, it's okay to think materialistic, the things that you would like to accomplish, because if we're a matter, we have to respect, we have to stay in order, but as well as spiritually speaking, right? So we have to take a leap from the now, just the now. We take everything that we bring from the past with us, the good things, and we apply it, and we spring into the future, right? So a great highlight here of the evolving of the planet and how we're being helped, constantly being helped to deal with the difficulties that we're going through right now. Recently, the Valdo Franco himself have reminded us in one of his talks, the lives that he has been doing, that after 2025, we will receive higher order spirits more often than not to come and help us. And it's in this book. It is in this amazing book, Planetary Transition, that we can read and learn much more and disconnect a little bit from our day-to-day materialistic lives. So what do we do? I mean, how do we get to a point where we can say, okay, I'm doing this constantly, or I'm doing this often, where I am allowing myself or proposing to myself this change, right? There is a very interesting passage. I'm not going to read the whole thing, that we find in the Spirit's book as well, question 919, where Kardec asks, what is the most effective means for improving ourselves in this life and for resisting the draw of evil? Because we see right now a bunch of distractions. Matter in itself is distractive. If you go and Google or search something on the internet, that a topic, you get not only the listings that perhaps may be helpful, but a million other things that it's like, okay, my gosh, I didn't look for this. And then you see advertisement of certain things that perhaps you have spoken of looking in the past. They keep bombarding you, right? I like to use that analogy because life is like that. You're thinking to conduct yourself very well, and you allow yourself to do and say and think certain things, and then you come in contact with the other things of life that it's like, oh gosh, as much as I try, I see this, I see that. The answer is very interesting. A sage of antiquity has told you, know thyself. Knowing ourselves will allow us to propose ourselves the changes, and as we come in contact with the distraction, we can stop and think, okay, that is a distraction. So let me go ahead and reset. And you reset and you move on with your mind set in the goal that you have perhaps established for yourself, for the now and for the future, and you move on. But Kardec did not want to stop there, and he asked, okay, the saying in that is attributed to Socrates. That's why I like to bring a lot of art to the presentation, so we can see and we can connect as well, and it brings the beauty, a different beauty to just me talking and sharing my voice as well. But it is a tribute to Socrates, and Kardec says, wait a minute, we get this, but give me a little bit more concrete ideals on how I can change this. And then St. Augustine comes and gives this beautiful, amazing explanation. This is not the whole thing. It has two more paragraphs here, but it says, do what I used to do when I was living on the earth. At the end of each day, I examined my conscience, revealed what I had done, and asked myself whether or not I had failed to fulfill some duty, and whether or not anyone might have had reason to complain about me. It was thus that I arrived at knowing myself and at seeing what there was in me that needed to be transformed. Those who every day, every night would recall all their actions during the day and would ask themselves what good or evil they have done, praying to God and their guardian angels to enlighten them, would acquire great strength for self improvement. Because believe me, God will assist them. Therefore, ask yourselves about what you have done and towards what aim you act in a particular circumstance. Whether you have done anything that you would blame in others, and whether you have done anything that you would not dare profess. Also ask if it pleased God to call me at this moment to enter the world of spirits, where nothing is hidden. Would I cover before anyone's gaze? Examine what you may have done against God, then against your neighbor, and lastly, against yourselves. The answer will be either repose for your conscience or an indication of a wrong that you must amend. St. Augustine. Again, there's more to this, but the main point here is the following. You can take this and you can twist it, right? We can twist anything because, and I'm playing here, the other side here because it's important. And St. Augustine analyzes this and brings us this highlight. And we can say, well, wait a minute, what I think is good for me, it's good for me, but it may not be good for others, right? But truly think that there are things that sometimes we think that are good for us are really good for others. Is this really good for if we were to apply? And I forget the philosopher who said this right now. Anyways, it escapes my mind now. But in order for us to find if something is truly good, and there are arguments about this, just apply for the whole planet. If I were to take this action and apply to everyone, if everyone starts doing this, would this be good for society? Again, it escapes me the philosopher who said it, and this is something that will be pending now in my mind. I'll be thinking, but we will clearly see that it may not be good. So it's important that we truly analyze our minds and we ask for help because God is here to help us, right? And the answer, as he said, will be repose, or we will have an indication that something needs to be changed. I would like to kind of, as we go into the end right now, to say that we're not perfect. And quite often, or more often than not, because we're in this transition, we're still vibrating under very materialistic ideals that we're not going to have, we're not going to be make it right or get it right in many of our tries, right? Many of our days, if we were to do this analysis, we will see that I have to do this, I have to do that. But at least you will be able to go ahead and enter a new realm where we can propose to ourselves and those around us a better life, a better environment. And this is what we would like to highlight here so that we can spring ourselves into a better future, not only in the now, but also in years to come, right? To finalize, we go back to Louis Pasteur. We shared the first two messages that he brings to us, right? Very enlightening in terms of consideration of what our lives entail and how we can be shaken by small creatures, but also our connection with God. It's very interesting. And then we also brought a excerpt of one of his biography that was done by actually his son-in-law, when he said, absolute faith in God and in eternity, and a conviction that the power for good given to us in this world would be continued beyond it, were feelings which pervade his whole life. The virtues of the gospel had ever been present to him, full of respect for the form of religion which had been that of his forefathers. He came simply to it and naturally for spiritual help in these last weeks of his life. I brought this here because this man, again, as we were discussing at the beginning, is the reason why he brought us, the reason why we conduct ourselves in such a way. I like to joke with with the closest ones that this virus, this pandemic that we're going through right now, is also a sign that cleanliness, or a more effective cleanliness, is one of the signs, one of the calls that we are now receiving, that in order for us to depart from a planet of trials and expiation into a planet of regeneration. Because if you think about it, if we don't clean our bodies well, how is our mind? If we have trash around the house, we're not going to live a good life, right? A sane life. We have to clean. We clean our homes. We clean ourselves. We brush our teeth. We do everything. Now we're being called to dive even more into this idea of cleanliness. But it's not only the cleanliness of the physical body, of wearing a mask, not touching our faces and everything. It's the cleanliness of the mind, the cleanliness of the heart, with the conviction that the powers that were given to us right now in this reincarnation is to be used for us to better ourselves, to help others as well, and to continue in the eternity. The eternity will be the new reincarnation that we are about to receive soon, right? I am in my early 40s right now. Not that I would like to disclose my age, but I keep thinking, how many more years do we have, right? But we always have to think, when is the depart and when will be the return? What resources am I leaving for my return here? Not that we're going to see the same things. We're going to maybe not reincarnate in the same family, the same settings. But we have to think of, what will I do? What kind of spring am I facilitating for myself and for others as they are coming into this world as well? So that's the message, folks, that we would like to bring tonight, hoping that not only we allow ourselves to understand who we are in connection with our Creator, because there is a lot of blaming right now. God has imposed this on us. God is creating this whole thing because we don't. God cares about us, but in a more enlightening, in more. I like to go back to the real quick, the highlight that I brought. God is vibrating in a supreme way, not in the mundane ways that we think, but truly for us to help ourselves, right? We are transitioning from a difficult moment to a moment of, let's say, of rest. And when I say rest, it's not that we're we're about to just relax, that things are going to get better. No, one of the highlights that I like to bring about this in this transition is that we're not going to we can say that we just had a surgery, right? That we're still in that moment of catching our breath, but we have to walk. In the past, I don't know if you remember this, but we were told after a major surgery or whatever would happen to our physical body was to rest. Nowadays, whatever we do, if you go to the hospital and you have a procedure, you're told to walk. Doctors now, they realize that if we don't walk, if we don't move, guess what? The nutrients are not moving, right? We don't breathe well. One of the problems that they found recently is that people who will stay in the respirators for too long, they're actually coming to die, because the lungs are only being pumped by a machine. And if the person, the individual, doesn't do the job, him or herself, guess what? They come to pass as well. So it's another problem that they found, that they have to help people to also move around and take them out of the respirator so they can rest, they can breathe by themselves. Again, another highlight that we are made to move, we're made to work, to progress in life in general. So I hope that with this understanding. And the help that we are receiving from other planets, from God, from our mentors, we can certainly be springing to a better future, leaving aside all the craziness, all the difficulties that we have created for ourselves and for others, and truly open up for something more enlightening, a better life, a moment like this that we bring to our homes now. What a beautiful thing, as Vanessa mentioned. We are having the ability to bring the Spirit Center. We're having the ability to bring the spiritual homes that we have created, whether you go to a church or not, or whatever that may be, to our homes, to our physical homes. Now, truly, if we can say, one of the things that Spiritism, the aims of Spiritism is to habilitate people to make their homes their own Spiritist center. For the longest time ever, since I have been a Spiritist, the only time that we have at home that we sit down and make it a Spiritist center, which is already a great step, at the moment that we have for our God at home. Now we have meetings 3, 4. This is my 5th meeting this week that I'm participating, and thank God, given the ability to speak and share this with you. And with that, I thank you so much for listening, and I'll pass the word back to Vanessa. Thank you.
Thank you, Leo. It's so good to hear from you, and thank you for sharing the teachings and boosting our hopes, right? It's good. It's good.
It's a lot of food for thought, but hopefully we can gather some goodness and spring into the future.
Yes, and I want to highlight what you mentioned. This time, the good spirits are counting on us to change the way our relationship with our homes, because our world is going to change when we make our homes true temples of God. And we need to stop making our homes like hideouts, like making our homes like a hideout for the addictions, the craziness. Now it's time, like if we don't bring our work, our parenting, our relationship to God at home, how are we going to do during these weeks and upcoming weeks till God knows when, right? So it's a good experience that we're allowing. During this time, we want to clarify, right, Leo, that the guardian angels are taking the opportunity, the protecting spirits, as much as we pray together as a family. I tell people this time, like Brian Foster said last week, there is no time for us to say, oh, but I'm not going to talk about God. The clock is ticking.
Yeah.
We can't postpone it anymore, right?
But it's very small, because when I say it's very small, hear me out. I mean, the idea of talking about God, it doesn't have to be that we sit down and we read part of the Bible, whatever. No, it's small actions, small tokens. For example, this weekend, obviously, many of us, many individuals, we were celebrating Easter, which will have to contain ourselves, not to go into the big gatherings, but why not take that moment and sharing with others other things? For example, we have a study that we have been conducting every Sunday now on the idea of mediumship. And some of us have questioned, well, but it's Easter. Well, it doesn't matter. Celebrate Easter if you want to celebrate Easter during the day, and then at night when we have that moment, why not? It's not, because the conversation that you will have, the things that you will do at that time, it's not going to be enlightening. So, but it's in the small tokens of things, like the conversations that you have, the things that we're watching, and many other things. I think that this is truly a moment that we have to bring the God at home. We're also conducting at the Spirit Center of Baltimore the same work on Mondays, where we do the visualization and we do the spiritual passes through the web now. And I always like to remind everyone, look at this right now. This is unprecedented, right? You're bringing the Spiritist Center to your home. act accordingly. So in a positive way. And the people look at it, it's like, wow, I never thought about that. Well, I didn't either. And the mentors told me this.
Of course. After all, we have 24 hours a day.
Yes.
There is time for everything and also time for this. So thank you so much, Leo, for being with us. Thank you for sharing the study. A big hug to the whole family, to the whole family at the Spirit Side of Baltimore. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. Thank
So
you.
now we're going to invite you, dear friends, to join us in a moment that we call the virtual passes. It's a moment in which you're going to facilitate it. You know, when we go to a Spiritist center, there is that moment in which we sit down, we open up, and the pass givers apply the passes. Now, we invite you where you are. Stay there. We're going to play some background music. And though we don't have incarnate people in front of you to apply it, your protecting spirits, plus the spirit doctors, nurses, and therapists of the Spirit side of Virginia, plus Cardiac Radio's team, they will be there visiting everyone who is open to recharge you, to cleanse your mental energy field, but also to help everyone who is in your house, rescue anyone who is in need. So this is true therapeutic for us, okay? So close your eyes if you may, and let us visualize it. Let us all visualize a beautiful field of lavender flowers. Let us visualize ourselves walking within it, through it, and inhale the therapeutic scent of lavender, bringing calmness to all of us. And breathe out, letting go of unwanted thoughts and feelings. Let us breathe in and feel loving spirit doctors approaching us and offering to us a bouquet of lavender flowers. Let us bring it close to our hearts and allow it to treat our heart chakra, bringing calmness to it, serenity. We breathe in and out, deeply and slowly, as we visualize the light of the flowers. From the petals of the flowers, we see calming rays of light enveloping us in deep serenity. The spirit doctors now are asking us to dedicate a bunch of those lavender flowers to someone we need to reconcile with. Let us visualize ourselves offering that bouquet of flowers to that person and say inside of us, I forgive you. Please forgive me. And let us repeat it 2 more times. I forgive you. Please forgive me. I forgive you. Please forgive me. Let us all breathe in this calming essences that were delivered by the spirit doctors to us and visualize our homes being enveloped by calming vibrations, vibrations of health and serenity, radiating to our neighbors and traveling through the streets of our cities, of our states, of our countries, of the whole planet Earth. Let us now prepare ourselves to express our gratitude and worship God, praising God for the wonders of life. And we ask our dear Luciana to join us. Okay, our dear Paloma is here with us. We will ask her to kindly lead us into the final prayer.
Let us keep our eyes closed, visualizing Jesus. Dear loving Master, we thank you for the beautiful message we received today, triggering our conscience to the long-term development of the Spirit. The much to come calms our heart and brings us happiness, imagining what the future will look like. We thank you for giving us the opportunity to reflect on the current moments and change the lenses in how we see things. We're also thankful for having the peace and calm of our homes, but we understand that there are many feeling afflicted. So, dear Jesus, we pray for all the souls across the planet that feel at this time a loss. They might be afflicted in their thoughts. Maybe they're going through physical ailments. So we pray to their guardian angel to assist them to vibrate positive energies, healing energies, to every single one that needs it right now. We would also like to pray to the many workers that are working very hard at hospitals, at doctors' offices, the teachers that are being tried to teach in new ways. We are blessed for the inspiration that you always gives us and the support. And with your permission, your guidance, and your protection, we would like to close tonight's meeting, and so be it.
Thank you so much, dear friends, for being here with us at the Spirit Side of Virginia, Cardiac Radio. We thank Leo Vieira, Paloma, and Luciana for joining us, and for Carol Correa, and also our dear Daisy Gallen for the opportunity of being with us. Friends, if you have questions or comments, feel free to write to us at cardiacradio@gmail.com. If by any chance you need spiritual counseling, write to us and we'll be able to talk with you. On Monday at 6:30 p.m., we have our online spiritual care moment here at Cardiac Radio, coordinated by the Spirit Side of Virginia. For now, we wish you lots of blessings and much calmness and serenity in the hearts. Thank you.